So hello. Well, there we are. I have no headset on because I don't need one because I'm here all alone. Well, I'm not alone. I'm with you, chat. I'm a bit nervous. This will be the first episode of Jasper's Laboratory. So welcome. This will be your screen that you'll be watching for the next couple of months, years, I don't know. Well, it will probably develop over time. But anyway, welcome to our new show. Welcome to Jasper's Lab, where I do some session prep. I rehearsed that one, but I still had to read it from paper because I'm nervous, as I already told you. Why am I telling you I'm nervous? Because I want to tell you that I'm nervous. It's one. Well, the other thing I want to say to you is that you shouldn't be nervous, right? So what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about session preparation and being a dungeon master or game master or however you want to call it. There's a lot of pressure on dungeon masters to perform in a way, and I think that's okay to some extent. But there's also the fact that you're playing a game with friends, and therefore they should never judge you if you make any mistakes, and that's why you should relax while doing it. Having said that, while I have been a dungeon master for 28 years, except for probably the last 3 years or so, I have always been nervous before I start a session. Doesn't matter if I have 2 players at my table, if I have 14 players at my table, or even 20. I think I neared 20 at one time. So it didn't make a difference how big the table was or how many people attended. I just got nervous because I wanted to do my absolute best. And the first thing I'm going to tell you is don't do your absolute best all the time, because you can't be good all the time. So that's what I wanted to start off with after my first introduction. So one thing I really want to know is, how's the music? Yeah, 20 players at one table. Yeah. Or in one living room because the table wasn't big enough. Good level for the music, thank you. It's the first show where we have used music. Where we are using music. Music is good, thank you. I want to do some socials because I think it's part of this of our voidcast thing that we at least let you know where we are at, and we are on Twitch, we are on YouTube, and a follow would go a great way. If you have the Twitch Prime account and you can give away a free sub, that's great as well. So please do if you like the show. If you don't like the show, please don't. But I hope you like the show. We have an Instagram where we post some art. We announce our shows. We have a Discord server that gets filled. And Ashley, who is in chat, is our main contributor at the moment, I think. Although there's a lot of art there and everything. And after some shows, we can invite you on the Discord server and drag you into our post chat to have a nice conversation with you if you want. Then we recently got a Reddit. Thank you, Careful Cantrip, for introducing us to that option. And it's not filled yet, but anyway. And do we have any more? Well, we have a Twitter account, and we're starting to use that one as well. And we have a Facebook account. So there are all these, you can see it in the bottom of my screen, right? Anyway, thank you for joining me. Yes, okay, that's okay. I really had to see which way I would turn if I... thanks for joining me. I see some new people in chat, I think. Please join me on this adventure, because it will be an adventure. We will be making it an adventure. But before we go into that, let's first run the introduction. And here we go. And we're back. Yeah. Small new introduction by Michel. Thank you so much for doing that, Michel. And as you see, there's this slideshow above my head, which shows the different shots from that thing. Those are maps. I don't think they are really in focus right now. I have to see for the next time how that will work. But this is a placeholder. I want to get more information into that square, maybe show some maps that we might draw on the show, because I will be drawing. Let's just dive into it. At the end of the show, I will probably say which other shows we'll be doing in next week and the week after that. But I'm just a bit too nervous and just want to get started. Amazing intro, Michel. You're welcome, says Michel. Well, that's okay then. And thanks for joining, Erik. Session preparation. So I wanted to start the show because you always see people talking about Dungeons and Dragons and what the Dungeon Master should do or what he should not do, or she. What players should do or not do. You see all these videos on YouTube, but and sometimes they say, you for a 4-hour prep session, you have to prepare for 4 hours. So that gives you some guidelines on how much time you will have to invest in your dungeon mastery before the session is there. But it really is not accurate. Although it might be accurate in some cases. None of these people who tell you that a dungeon mastering is about this or that is wrong either. They are right in certain aspects. But what I want to do in this show is really show you how you can prepare for a session. Hello, I'm looking for a D&D group. Can I join? I'm in the USA. The Dying Light Zone. Thank you for asking, but you cannot join this group because I'm doing session preparation. But you're welcome to hang and chat, of course. And there are some really cool people there. So get acquainted, I would say. And if you want to watch a Dungeons and Dragons show, and here I go anyway, every other Monday, it was yesterday, so it will be in 2 weeks, we have an actual play on this Twitch channel at 8:30 Central European time. So half hour earlier than this one. I think one of the best ways to find a group is on Reddit, says Michel. Don't chase him away. Anyway, so 4 hours on, 4 hours off, however you want to put it. There's no real formula for how much preparation you will be doing for a single session. For example, I have had sessions where I didn't prepare at all. I have had consecutive sessions where I didn't prepare at all. And I've had sessions, and not even a starter session, where I've prepared for over 40, maybe 60 hours. And then you say, what? Man, I will never go and do that. Well, maybe you won't at the start, and maybe you get inspired one day and you will do this. So that's where I'm at with this show. There is no real minimum, there's no real maximum. Although I would suggest keeping a healthy relationship if you have a partner or have a job or have friends on the outside, and just go out at some point. So I have been. I am the dungeon master of 3 different groups at this moment. 2 of these are bi-weekly and 1 is a monthly group. And because of the Voidcast, I have taken it a step down for a while, so I can do these kinds of stuff. And I will eventually be prepping for those sessions as well on this show. So if you're in chat and you're on one of my shows, then please don't watch that episode. But 4 hours, I wish I could ride that fast. Well, there we go. Riding. Is it necessary, actually? I've taken some time off from my private games to be more focused on Voidcast, and I really wanted to do this show. And so I will be prepping with you, and I will give you examples of how I prep for my real campaigns. But the title of this episode is Let's Get Started, because, I wanted to dive right into it. And to do this, I wanted to ask chat. Give me an example. No, don't give me an example. Give me the name of a world. Just a random name for a world. I'm going to ask more questions, so you better have your typey ready. Varden. So, give me Orlando. No, I will not do that one. I have to be able to pronounce it, Herr Stevens. So, what's weird about this world? Give me something. It might be that it's constantly in a big storm, or that it floats through space, or just tell me anything you want. Second Varden. Yeah, well, I've already put that on screen. What's so strange about this world? It's inside out, yeah. It's inside out. Okay. Give me the name of possibly a country on this world, or a place. Let's call it a place. With the core acting as the sun. Reminds me of the Dead Book trilogy. Well, not trilogy, the Dead Book series, right? Oh no, was it the Deadgate? Yeah. Pleasantville. Pleasantville? Okay. So, there we go, mistyping. That's my so there we go. Okay. So there's this place called Pleasantville on the world called Varden that's inside out. Now, dungeon mastering is something like this. There's a blackness to reality. The bleak expanse of space is filled with nothing more than whimsical globes floating around without any purpose. One of these globes that floats around in space is called Varden. They consider it a world, although they are not on the outside of it as we are used to. Instead, they live on the inside of the globe and they have never heard of space. This world is lit by a sun that's at the center of this world, and because people do look up at the sky when the sun at certain points gets covered by a spherical orb called a moon, and they can see the other side of the inner globe. Many centuries have passed since the discovery that you can actually walk to the other side. And so, in the renaissance of this world, trade has become booming and people travel all across the world. Peace is a sure thing in these times, and that's why villages like Pleasantville have popped up at certain points in this inner world. Pleasantville, Good Home, Nice Town, all these places refer to the booming business and the light tone in which people address each other. And this is where we zoom in to this village called Pleasantville. Pleasantville really is only a market square. But there is an inn at this market square. Actually, there are 3 inns at the market square because Pleasantville is at the crossroads of some big trade routes that lead through the countries around it. And you, adventurer, find yourself in this Pleasantville because you have traveled a lot and have been trading a lot across the road, but at this point you've sold everything, your pockets are lined with gold, and you're searching for a place to rest for the night. And there it is, the Bull Without Horns, an inn more extravagant than you've ever seen. You've got a lot of gold, so you know you can pay to stay there, and that's why you open the doors and you step into this warm room where all the people look up at you and say, "There's another one, welcome." Okay, not my best job, I must admit, because I'm a bit nervous, but this is what the introduction to staying at the cow, at the bull, yeah. Anyway, because it has no horns, yeah. I could have done better at this, but the point I'm trying to make is that to start an adventure, the only thing you have to do is get some things together and make it into a story. And once you have made it into a story, you can add to it afterwards. This is where I do agree. It was great. Thank you. With a big T even. A world can be as amazing as you want it to be, but it can also be non-descriptive. You don't have to have a world before you start playing a session. You walk into the inn, the bartender moves at you as a hearty welcome. Yeah, maybe all the people are cows. Who knows? I'm not going there though, because it will be a bit too silly, I think. Well, of course we will be. Chat is going wild. Don't have to say this for YouTube, but I will be interacting a lot with chat. So don't milk it. Oh man, this is going to be tough. Anyway, the only thing I'm trying to say is that, and with which I agree with most dungeon masters who tell you something about session preparation on YouTube, is that you can start nearly anywhere and you don't have to invent anything at all before you even start playing. Yeah, because the only thing you need is a crossroads and an inn, or anything that's a trope in some way can be used as the start of an adventure. Because especially with first-time players, they don't know what the Dungeons and Dragons or any RPG tropes are. They don't know that it is the most common thing to start your adventure in an inn, and maybe the first encounter will be some rats in the basement. You know, any new player might enjoy that. Because I've been playing for quite a long time, I've been going out of my way to think of new ways into which introduce characters to an adventure. But the last time I did it, I started at an inn, because it's always pleasant at an inn, and you always have this great opening. There will probably be a non-playing character who gets to your table and asks the people around the table, "Do you want to play a game of cards or a game of chess, or what brings you to this town?" And there might be a shady figure in the corner, or there might be a worried bartender because his daughter has disappeared. All these things are always new to new players, and even if they have looked up things on YouTube, it might even inspire them to hear this start to an adventure. I mean, I remember this show where I think both Matt, and with which I mean Matthew Colville and Matt Mercer, were on a show for, well, a Dungeons and Dragons show, a fireside thingy, or I don't remember which one it was. And they were talking about, well, let's not do the inn story again, you know, it's so this and that. And then Mr. Mercer started his second season of Critical Role. And where did he start? In an inn. Because, yeah, it was a great way to start. But you can just as easily start your adventure on the road, or at a chance meeting, or at a market, or something is happening that drives you out of your town and everything. It's really up to you. And no one will mind if you do this. No one will also mind if you haven't thought of anything outside of your starter town. No one will mind if your world is set into stone. No one will even mind what the name of this world is or the country you are living in. It's so localized at first. Well, you can start it very localized. You don't have to, of course. You can start in a big city, or you can start with something, a big event happening like Armageddon, and stuff is blowing up everywhere around you. You can do that, but you don't have to. You can keep it as small as you want, and this especially goes for first-time dungeon masters, I think. If you want to do your first adventure yourself, so you will not be picking up any modules. Just think of what kind of story you want to tell, and keep it small. And in this example, we could go for a missing daughter, or we could go for a kidnapping of somebody else in town, or we could go for a lot of burglaries that happened in this town, or whatever. It's called Pleasantville, so it might be really shocking even to the players that this is happening, but who knows? I'm going to read some chat now. It is so freeing, isn't it? Learning to just let go and fully immerse. And one of the greatest moments when learning D&D was when I realized anything was possible. It changed my life forever. Yeah. I improvised a session as DM last week, starting at an inn, where they were asked to get the rats in the basement of a nearby farmhouse. Man, my throat is dry. And Ashley says, I got to watch some players do a one-shot fully in a tavern. They played a game of brag where they had to tell the best story and impress the NPCs. The mechanic for it was the better the story was, judged by the other PCs, the more dice they rolled. I score 1. It was incredible. Yeah. So that's where I want to go next, actually. It's that on this channel we play Dungeons and Dragons, but in a way, preparing for a session has nothing to do with any setting. So, of course, when you start to play a game like Dungeons and Dragons, you want to know more about this system that you're going to use. And of course, you want to kind of build a character. And of course, the Dungeon Master has to know some of the rules to react to these characters entering his or her world. But any system is allowed, really. It's just that we do a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. But I would recommend start with a story, not with any mechanics, because that's where you want to go on from. That's where I wanted to start this off, and then I wanted to ask you again, what is happening in Pleasantville that will get the adventurers involved in this example? Do you want to give me something? And please don't let it be too silly, because I want to keep a straight face up to some point. Oh, here come the long answers. The core is dimming and no one knows why. Well, okay. Epic skill immediately, Ashley. Okay, so I will not go and do that, but I will put that down, because the core is dimming and no one knows why. Because that's epic, you know. The bard in the tavern has lost his voice by magical means. The bard in the tavern has lost his voice by magical means. So, let's go with that for now. But I will tell you why I will not be starting with your answer, Ashley, because I want to make it small to start off with. And although we could probably find a way that the reason the core is dimming is because something is happening in Pleasantville, and we will probably include this into our story, I think it's a bit too big to start off with if you just want to have a very fun, nice little session preparation, because that's what this first episode will be about. Doing a starter adventure, preparing for that, to have all the tools in the end to run this thing. Why is there a big like that? Okay. Normally, when you start imagining an adventure, you're probably on your own. I'm not on my own now. I'm talking to you, and these ideas will start getting into your head. Or you might have seen a fantasy movie or any movie really that inspired you to start thinking about something that you want to put onto paper, and you want to get a party at your table with which you want to run this adventure you have been thinking of. But you might think, before you even start doing this preparation, that you have to do something magnificent for these players. There I go again. 100% agree with you, Jasper. And having a big idea like Ashley's can always help a goal to reach. Yeah. Other things, one of the houses are around the market square suddenly mysteriously collapses. That's cool as well. What I started to say is that you might be inclined to, instead of running your first personal game, to start with a game that's already pre-written. Lost Mine of Wanderer is Van Delver is one of the most well-known adventures out there for Dungeons and Dragons. And it's great. I've heard really great things about that campaign, and I will go into prepping for a pre-written adventure at some point. Lost Mine of Vandelver is wonderful for starting players and Dungeon Masters. But what you have to keep in mind is that these products, and I'm now... am I going to do this? Yeah, I'm going to do this. Okay, let's see. Why? Oh, that's annoying. Wait, let's get out of this mode. Yeah. There we go. If you watch the screen, you can see that I've changed the appearance of it. And this is the Jasper's Laboratory logo, but my son wanted to draw on it. So he got some colors into it, and he really wanted me to show you this. So here it is. And he added a little flask that is filling up the L with some green liquid. So that's cool. Anyway, this is a pre-written adventure. This is a big one. This is like a campaign on its own. And what you have to notice when you're opening these kinds of books is this page. You see? Credits. Who credits? I can just do it here. Credits. The story and creator and lead writer, Christopher Perkins. Well, those who know Dungeons & Dragons know Christopher Perkins probably. Or at least get involved in the community know him. And then you have all these people who have added to this adventure. People, this is not you. You are but one individual. So, if you get inspired by a game like Lost Mines of Vandelver and you wanted to start your game, you might think that the first thing you have to do is write something called an introduction to your adventure, a synopsis. What is this book about? How do you run this adventure? Who will you meet in this adventure and everything? Well, don't get into that tunnel vision, because that will not help you at all. Because it's way too big for one person to do. It's the same as you can always start to write a whole game system, but you will find in a way that, unless it's a really simple game system, of course, you can always do that. That's pretty hard to do something like that yourself, and I've experienced this. I mean, that's why you're now on voidcastlive. So set your expectations when you start building your own adventure, and don't take it from products that are already there. Although, of course, you can include or get inspiration from these books. But then start determining for yourself what you want out of your first adventure. So we're now going to think of an adventure where this Bart has lost his voice through magical means in a town called Pleasantville with an inn that's called the Bull Without Horns, or the Cow, or whatever you want to call it. Although I don't agree that a cow is a bull without horns. Anyway. You've probably been thinking about this town for quite a while, and so you've made a picture in your mind of what it is. Then you can go onto the internet and download map-making tools and everything, and that's great. There are some pretty cool map-making tools out there. We use them on the Precipice of Dreams as well. The first every city up till now is made with a cartographer module that we use from the internet, and it's really great. And you get these simple maps out of it. And that's really the shortest prep time you could possibly imagine. Or is it? Because I think the only thing you have to do, and even that you don't really have to do, is do this. I'm using the right one. No, I'm not using the right one. That's why it's messy. So there's a square in town. And there's a road leading that way, that way, that way, and that way. I told you there were 3 inns, so one is here. And there's one here, which is the biggest one, which is where our adventure will take place. Because your adventurer looked at the most prominent one that's on there. And there's another one here, which is more like a longhouse kind of thing. Which is the cheapest one, and you have to share some rooms with others. Of course, there are other houses here, but we are not going to draw them in right now. So this is what you described in your introduction. You don't need anything else except for the fact that when your players, for example, get outside of the inn, you have to describe what they see. And you say, well, there's this square, there's this well in the middle of it, and these 4 roads lead away from it, and the biggest houses are all around the square, like that. I really dislike this part now because it's illogical to have it there because there's no entry. Anyway, and after that, you see that there are just some houses left alongside of the road. There are some fields out there, and there's a stream running across one side of town. I drew the bridge the wrong way. Like that. There's a forest nearby. And there you have your map for your first session. You don't need anything else. And you can draw this within a couple of seconds. You don't even have to install an application for this, subscribe or anything. Just take a piece of paper and start drawing. This is a road, this black line. Well, this black line is a fence between 2 fields. Now, this Bart has lost his voice through magical means, which means that something happened to him. And for now, we are going to focus on the village because we want to keep it really small. So something in the village takes away voices. Well, let's think of some tropes. There might be something in the well. There might be something in the cellar. There might be something coming out of the woods in the evening that takes away a voice. There might be a person that has died and can't manifest a voice, him or herself, and takes away voices from other people, so he or she can probably be heard. A jealous rival could also be someone who does this. So there are all these things that... wow, what a big hand. Imagine that. Ooh. You see that, people? Yeah. Anyway, all these can be the cause of of what is happening. But because chat says jealous rival, let's just go with that. So there's a jealous rival somewhere. Amazing stuff, yes? Yeah, truly. I have no idea. I have no idea if this is fun to watch or not, but this is how I do it. So the hand of the gods, yeah. And it gets it's a bit strange as well, and a bit hairy. You see? Ironic Monty Python moment where a real hand destroys a cartoon town. Yeah, I will not be doing that right now. Anyway, so there's a jealous rival to the Bard. Let's talk about that one. I like that one. Yes, I feel so proud. You're doing great. Well, I think Michel is inspiring me now and trying to get me relaxed, which I am getting relaxed a bit more. My English is getting better again, I think. Where was I? Oh yeah, so a jealous rival is in town. So, what do you need for this adventure? I think the only couple of things you need. Let's now go to the adventure part of this. The adventure is a bard has lost his voice. A jealous rival took it by magical means. Now we have to ask ourselves why. Like I always say, far better than my conversational Dutch. Yeah, thank you, Ashley. Jealous rival took it by magical means. We know this. Now we have to think of why this jealous rival took it by magical means. Because, dare I say she? Gets well, that's a bit too on the nose. Because the bard always gets the better deals at the inns, and they keep meeting. Something like that. She is fed up. Now, this adventure can go anyway, you know, because the bard can write down on the paper, I've lost my voice, can you please explore, see why this has happened, because it seems to be magical, because blah blah blah. The other bard is only invited to play the bunkhouse, yeah, like that. He has no idea what's happening, or he has a very specific idea what's happening. Anyway, the first part you're going to get in your adventure, well, let's say these characters are like blank sheets of paper. They have no personality to them. There are 2 to 8 of them, and they are just going to start playing this adventure. So you don't have to take into account any of their background for now. I will go into that in later episodes though, but for now it's a blank sheet. You started on the road to this town and they arrived at this town. So the first step you have to prepare is arrival in Pleasant Town, right? Now, of Pleasantville. Then the next thing that will happen is arrival at the bull. Let's just call it the bull, or let's call it the cow, because and forget my whole story about an inner world and everything for now. Arrival at the cow. Then you have to describe the cow. Then you have to tell something about the bard, because he might be looking around, for example, or well, this is annoying. And seeing if he can get some new people to help him with the problem he is having. Then you have to know what the bard knows. You might also want to give him a name. Bard is called Puckle. Bard Puckle. Know what the bard knows, and then you have to resolve the conversation. This is probably where the adventure starts. Or do you have any remarks about this? Would you not have done this? There are some dungeon masters in this in chat, but I want to take this as as an example at least. So now we can go a lot of ways with this. We can go the meta way, or we can go the meta way, or something in between. I'm calling on these names again, Matthew Mercer and Matt Colville, just because they have two totally different ways of approaching an adventure, and people who start watching things on YouTube often get inspired by these people and want to play the game as these two dungeon masters do it. I saw a very funny video where Matthew Mercer was impersonated, where the guy really said, the mug is old and the foam starts dripping over your hand and you feel the cold of the foam sliding across your arm into your... Well, you know what I mean? He's describing everything, and then the players at this table say, oh man, I got him watch one session of Critical Role and now he's like that. Well, before he was great as well. And that's the thing. Matthew Mercer is a great dungeon master. The new episode will probably drop soonish, and I will watch it again. But not everybody is a Matthew Mercer. Everyone has said this as well. And not everyone is a Matthew Colville, so you don't have to take to their way of being a dungeon master. You have to really get to know what you want to be as a dungeon master. Ashley says, it is interesting because I'm already thinking how many different ways can the PC react to this. Join the bard, join the other bard, put on a play, and put both out of business, shrug and leave. This is why I spent many hours prepping. Yeah. So what I'm going to tell you, Ashley, is that arrival in Pleasantville. Except for the ID that's in your head, you will not be prepping this. Not be prepping. Okay. Arrival at the cow. You will not be prepping. Describe the cow. Might be prepping. If you like visual aids, I would suggest you might draw a map or get a picture for yourself from the internet that is a representation of how you want this inn to be. And again, don't take too long. I have to see what this looks like on the screen before I go. Yeah, on this screen, of course. So, what is an inn? I drew the big one, right? So it has about this shape. So I drew that pretty quickly without thinking of what it was going to be. But the road is on this side. So you get in from this side. So there must be a door somewhere there. Now let's put it in the middle because that's cool. It's a double door and then there's room after it. There's probably a bar on the opposite side. And because there's no room here, there will be either probably here on the other side there will be a part where the kitchen is. So there will be a wall and probably the door will be near to the bar because the people have to get to the bar. Then you have this L shape for the tavern part of the inn. And because there's a bar, there's probably a stage somewhere. So let's put the stage here. And maybe there's a chair on it and everything. And then also because it's an inn, there's probably a stair. So there will be a stair here. See, I'm starting to draw a bit more conscious. Like that. Now, that means that this is the outside wall. There are probably some windows in there. So let's put it like that. And of course, because it's an inn, there are tables. So there's a table here, there's a table here, there's a table here near the windows, not too close to the stage, but there might still be one here with some chairs next to it. And maybe there's a long table here where people just come in after long days of work and sit with friends. And then there's another one there. And probably there are windows next to the table. So let's do it like that. Then there's, like with bar stools right there. I don't know how you call that in English. And there might be a single extra table there. and there you kind of have your inn. This might help you visualize what's happening. I haven't drawn any pines on the bar or anything, but there will probably be someone standing here. When you I forgot the hearth. Well, but let's put it here. It's a square, and it burns on every side. So there, that's the thing that warms the whole area. So now when you that's the only thing you have to prep, because you aren't going to prepare for how you want to introduce this to your characters. You're just going to say, you come into this inn, you look to your left, there's a stage in the leftmost corner, there's a stair going up. Just before that there are a couple of tables, and there are a couple of people sitting on them. To the left there are some straight tables, probably for the local people to sit there. The door to the kitchen is going open and shut at regular intervals, because people are getting meals out of there and drinks, and the barman or woman is obviously cleaning a mug. And he might be bald, a bit bigger than normal. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Also be a beautiful female or not so beautiful female, doesn't matter. But you can do this on the spot. And you might say there is a fire at the center that warms it all. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you can just say you walk into the inn. It's a big inn. There are tables free, and there's a stair going up, and there's a small stage in the corner. You keep it at that. Or you might say, you open the doors and warmth comes at you. The ambience in the inn is amazing. Sounds are drifting from the food that's being played and enter your ear like something out of a fairy tale. I don't know. You can make it as big as you want, but you can keep it as small as you want as well. Because the thing is, the players who are on the other side of your table, they have their own imagination, and if you don't fill in everything for them, the inn will start to be more what they expect an inn to be. And this is where a lot of exposition can also work against you, because you are filling in what the fantasy of these particular people already did when they walked into the inn themselves. Or the imagination, of course. This is an inn, and we don't need this area. We don't need the second floor either. We might never draw the second floor, because the only thing you have to say, are you staying at the inn? Yes, well, there's a stair that gets to a small corridor. A couple of doors are next to it. Your chamber is at the back, and your chamber looks great. It's furnished pretty well. There's a soft mattress on the bed and everything. And you might not even get there. They might just go, can we sleep? Yes, you can sleep. Okay, it's the next morning. So you don't have to think about that part of the adventure. I'm now starting to realize that I'm taking a lot more time explaining this than I would ever use for the preparation of this adventure, because honestly, I think I would not have drawn this for this adventure. But it's an example of how this can aid you. And I hope this kind of visualization will aid you in how you handle these kinds of situations. So you have the inn. You do a little bit of preparation for that. And the least you can do is at least have a sense yourself of what is in this inn. It's good, man. Nice to see it and talk about it. Oh, thank you, Ashley. But it's very clear. Thank you. So now you have this inn, and there is a bard. We already know about the bard, right? So let's go back to the writing part. The bard puckle. Well, you have to describe the bard. That's what you have to do. Bard. We don't have to do this immediately, of course, because after this there will probably be some player time. They will order their drinks, they will sit at a table. You might prepare another non-playing character, or not prepare a non-playing character at all. For example, this guy Okay. This burly man comes up to you. His arms, or the village drunk. The village. This bit of a smelly, tiny man comes up to you, and he stinks of liquor, and he walks with a kind of swirl, and he comes up to your table and he says, I still have 1 silver left. Might I interest you in a game of chance? Or anything. Or, even better, I have 1 silver left. Might I interest you in a game of chance? He says with a drunken voice. You understand the difference of what I'm trying to do there? Or you might go, I have 1 silver left. Might I interest you in a game of chance? Anyway, anything in between will do, right? But this is how, and every one of these 3 examples will be equally good for your players, because once they attune to your dungeon master style, they will know what they have to prepare for themselves in their minds to make this picture perfect scene in an inn. So you might play a game of chance. You might do this by rolling a die, by everybody rolling 2d6 or whatever. Doesn't really matter, because it also always represents it. You might even get a real a card game. But if you do that, you'll probably be playing cards the rest of the evening, and the adventure will not really make any progress while you do that. But it might be a fun evening. That's okay as well. Everything is okay. Are there things that are not okay? And now, well, what's not okay is if you are doing these things and you are not enjoying yourself and your players are not enjoying yourself, because that's where you have to draw the line. If something is really not, if there's nothing happening at your table and everybody is sitting back and waiting for someone else to say something is off, and you have to discuss this. Damn, I didn't want to go into this in this session, but it's always good to set expectations of what your game will be about, how you will be playing it together, how it's a cooperative game, telling you all this stuff before you even start the game at your table. But I'll get into that one in another episode, I think. So now they have talked to the village drunk, and probably the bard has seen them interact with this drunk, and they might even be nice, or they might not be nice, but show a bit of power. And any one of these things can trigger the bard to approach them. He could say, "You look like the people I need." Or he might not say that actually, because he will be writing this, but we'll get into that. But his motivation might be that the party seems strong, or the party might seem gentle, or the party might seem like pushovers that do it for free, or the party might seem like they know their stuff. Anything will do. The bard will probably react to this. Why? Because he doesn't know the party, and he has only one interest, and that is getting his voice back. So now we get to the part where we have to do these 2 things. Describe the bard Pakkel and know what the bard knows. So what does the bard know? Right? He knows that he had his voice yesterday. Is that okay, Dave? He had his voice yesterday. He woke up with a sore throat. He thinks he thought he had a dream about someone entering his room. whatever way you'd like to do it, my friend. Well, then I'm going to do it like this. It might have been real. So this is one way in which you get the knowledge of what he is about. Well, remember, we haven't said anything about what's happening outside of this village. I did the introduction, but we're going to skip that for now. So he's here he came from place A and he went to place C, and in between is place B, namely Pleasantville. And this is where this accident happened to him. It happened probably in the night, and he's really distraught because he now knows that he didn't just woke up with a sore throat. His voice is really gone. He might even be chirping if he talks now, which is not that pleasant as well. So, if this is the story that has been developing in your Dungeon Master mind, then this is the. Do you want to talk about foreshadowing in this episode? Yes, I want to talk about foreshadowing in this episode. I will do that, and I will take into account what Ashley said. But I also really want to just have a session that you can be proud of afterwards without it having any significance for the rest of the adventure. Because I think that's really important as well. Grammar suggestions, riding dogs. Man, all these things. A nice touch could be within the dream, something about the sun dimming and he woke up losing his voice. Yeah, for now I'm not going to do that, but that's, well, for reasons. Will probably be some delay, so yeah. And Ashley says, to be honest, I am writing all this down as a way to introduce a bard to any game I'm playing in the future. You can watch it on YouTube probably on Thursday or Friday. Michel will tell you in chat. But thanks, Ashley. You go. I spelled wrong, of course. So these are the two things you have to know about the bard. But describing the bard, you don't. I would totally rip off the plot of The Little Mermaid. Yeah, you can do that as well. So you are going to describe the bard. Now, you can do this in a lot of ways. You can say, a bard comes up to your table and starts talking to you. Or writing stuff down on a piece of paper in front of you, and you are a bit confused about what he's doing. Or you might not even include that. Let's just say a bard walks up to your table and starts drawing on a piece of paper, and you realize he's writing something down. Easy. You might say a person dressed in fine clothes with a lute on his back and a flute in his belt is walking up to your table. He looks distraught. His hair is messy on top of his head, like he's been going through it with his fingers for some time, and you even see some marks of where he plucked it out of his skull. His mouth opens, but there's no sound coming out of it, or there might be chirping coming out of it. He takes a chair and pulls it up to your table, and he starts talking. He takes a piece of paper and starts writing like mad. That's the way you could do it. Or you could say, after you've been in the inn for quite a while, the mood suddenly dims somewhat as people watch a person that has been hanging out in the corner of the room suddenly push over a chair and making big strides towards your table. You see a man disheveled. He clearly has been clipping his nails with his teeth. Or you know where I'm going. Even deeper into the whole atmosphere that's in the inn. Someone might get up and prepare for possible combat, but sit down again once he realizes that this person is only going to your table. You can make it as big as you want or as small as you want. I would suggest really trying to just say, this bard is coming up to your table and he's trying to talk to you if you're not comfortable with all the rest. I've done this a lot of times because not every person that you will meet is as colorful as or is as colorful as you imagine this person to be. The thing is, you might call it a man, you might call it a woman, you might give it a species. I'm trying to say species instead of race because obvious things these days. And say this elven bard or this satyr bard or this turtle bard. Any species will do from the Dungeons and Dragons universe, or again from any universe at all. Comes up to you. You might give that flair. If you don't want to include anything of these things and just make it so that it is a bard and the only thing it has is a mission to get back his voice, well, then that's enough. You might get a bit into trouble later on when you suddenly say he rolls over on his back and his shell touches the stones of the street and it really makes for a clatter. Then the players might say from, what? Why? Why does someone's back make that why does he have a shell? And then you say, oh, but it's a turtle. And then there might be some disbelief for a while. And say, oh, you never said it was a turtle. Well, it's a turtle. Or you may say from, well, you never asked. Or you might be really mysterious and say from, you didn't even notice in the darkness of the room. He might have even been have changed himself to appear differently around there. And then you add to the mystery. Then you're improvising as well, which is a thing you should do. And as I'm saying it, or not, because if you're not comfortable with improvisation, then you should not do it. But then again, if you're not comfortable with improvisation, you should probably say something about arrival in Pleasantville and arrival at the cow, right? Ah, man. So now this bard, you know his motivation and you know what he looks like. And you are starting to let him draw things on a piece of paper. Man, Dave, this is really, really irritating because now he can't get all these inflections, but he can get his information across though. So you know what the end of this conversation will be, because he wants his voice back. He wants the players to do it. Right? That's about everything you have to know about that. Well, they either say yes or no, in the broadest sense of what can happen here. If they say no, then that's too bad. Then you have to think of something else to do for the rest of the evening, or improvise something else, or really get really clingy, or have somebody get mad. Or I would not suggest it. The fun thing is, if they say no to this quest, which it is, of course, then for one, you have to start improvising because you probably didn't account for this. And for two, the instant nemesis, yes, as well. And two, your world is suddenly wide open. And the players get a distinct feeling that they have a choice, which is important as well. They could say no to this part. They could, and then you have, well, then I would get goosebumps if a new party would do this, though. So, good luck to you. So chat says, Michel says, ha ha ha. Ashley says, instant nemesis. Yes, instant nemesis. Michel Clark says, Michel. Yeah, well, anyway. Maybe a good tip there, improvising the session, is you should never be scared of falling silent. If you need to think about some detail, do so. Take a sip of water or something. Yeah, man, I have to take a sip of water. Thank you. Yeah, that's true. You will not have everything at the ready at all moments in your Dungeon Master career. Actually, there are such swing moments that even I, as a Dungeon Master for 28 years, am not prepared for what's going to happen. And it's fun. And you can tell this to your players. Man, I did not think that you would be doing this. Let's delay the session to next Saturday or next Wednesday or whatever. I really have to think for this and have to prepare for this. This is not that fun if it's your first session ever. But well, who knows, right? Here's another thing. If players then would say, okay, then we will do the quest because that's what you prepared, you can say either yes or no again, right? Both are right as well, because if you say, yeah, let's just do that, then you're just doing that adventure, and that's okay. If you say, no, I really want to do it this way because of player agency and everything, then they say, okay, let's delay the session. If you say we can continue a half an hour, that's great as well. If you say it's next Wednesday, then it's great as well. But okay, let's for now say that the person really said, or the party says, yes, we want to do this quest, dear Bart. What did we call him? Dear Bart Puckle, because you're a good guy. You're cool. And we want to get your voice back because that seems like an interesting quest. Yeah. And then they can be on their way. Now, what does it mean to be on their way in this case? It means that they will probably start asking questions. So, what does the inn know? Is the next question. What does the inn know? Do you see how I've not even included the Nemesis here? And the other question is this... what does the inn know? Yeah. I had to see if this was still on screen. Hello. Because there will be information. If there isn't any information, this will not be a fun adventure. It will probably be scattered among some of the residents, or it might be signs of a break-in, or it might be signs that someone saw someone escaping or running away late in the night. And then you have to think of these characters that will be that you will be able to talk to as the party. And yeah, so that's the next step. I'm going to chat now. Eric says, when I DM, I prepare for 4 hours, but once the session is on its way, I improvise over 60% of the session. The most important thing you can do is listen to your players, give them a situation, do not figure out a solution for them, but improvise on the solutions they come up with. And as he says, how much can you prepare to rely on the players to RP descriptions? Yeah, so I didn't really want to talk about players yet. I wanted to be very generic about players, but you really can't. Well, that's not entirely true. You can, if you know your players, you know exactly where they are at and how far they will go in their role playing or not go into their role playing. I am lucky to have some serious role playing groups, and I feel lucky because I like my games that way. But if they're not, then that's okay as well, as long as you're having fun. So this might be the difference in what players will do. They will say one might say, Dungeon Master, I have no clue what to do. How do I handle these kinds of situations? And then you just say, well, you could go to talk to the barkeep, for example. Okay, I do that. What does he say to me? And you say, the barkeep says to you that he saw someone leave the inn in the night and it went that way. And you point in the direction and the player might ask, I can't see, do you have a map of this, or where is he pointing? And you say, well, to the other inn. That's pretty bland, but the player might still think that he has found something that will lead him to the conclusion of this adventure by merely. Well, he might get a sense of completion by even asking this question, even though the dungeon master really did it for him. Other players might say, well, I'm going outside and I'm going to do a survival check to see if I can find any tracks. And then you say, okay, roll your survival check, and then you say, he says it's a 15. And then you say, okay, then you see some tracks leading from where the person slept in the inn towards the other building over there. And then you might have a group that really goes in all the way and says, okay, I'm taking a look at the room. In my past, I've been to many an inn, and I know that those who are guilty always leave this mark on their face when they know something around them is trying to catch them. Do I see any person in this room who, to me, seems to be at the point of fleeing the scene? And then you say as a dungeon master, well, you look around the room. You might ask for a perception check, or you might not. That's another thing. And you indeed see this person in the corner that looks a bit skittish. You don't know why. You don't know if it's connected to what you're doing right here. But as soon as he sees you looking at him, he really tries to hide himself in the darkest part of this inn that you are in. And then a conversation might evolve from that. Now, we might know that this person has nothing to do with the bard, or he or she might have something to do with the bard. But the conversation that will happen after this might be a very cool conversation, and although not very relevant to the adventure. And then you have your real RP heavy conversation that will certainly fulfill his joy meter for the rest of the evening, because this player wants to have these kinds of conversations. Now, you probably have more than one player though, so some players will just sit back and just enjoy what's happening, not say a word, but be very happy while the others are role-playing. There might be some who are getting really annoyed by all the role-playing because they want to get on with it. And there might be a lot of things that happen in between. You have to see, but Dungeon Master, shouldn't you be asking for a perception check because it's dark in that corner and you're just describing that he sees this character anyway because they are really want to use their dice to solve this mystery. And then the role-playing guy might say something like, well, no, I think it's great like this, and I will not do anything with the information other than that the guy is there and I have to talk to him because I have this feeling that. And he might not even ask for an insight check, or the dungeon master might not ask for an insight check because he wants to have the conversation really make the difference in this case. How convincing can the character be for this person in the corner of the inn to confess to some sin of his past, or even to seeing someone flee the scene. So you can never rely on role-playing, and role-playing is not a must for a role-playing game. Although I prefer to have role-players at my table. But you also have to see what each player wants from you. And this is partly can be something you discuss before you even start your game. Because if everyone expects to just have a killing spree in a small village, and you have prepared this adventure that's all about talking, then there might be some unhappy faces at your table. Or they might be very surprised. You see what I'm doing? Always, well. there we come to an other strange thing that's happening in how I am now giving the players information. And this is something I have difficulty with myself, because you could say that your goal is to get your players towards the other bard that's in the other inn and confront this person who has, for example, hidden the voice of this bard in a glass bottle that he has in his pack. Dave, that's what I came up with on the spot. So that might be a thing, or it might be something else. It might be a bargain with a devil or anything, but let's just say the voice is in a bottle. Now, if your goal is to get them from A to B, then in a way, everything is allowed from the Dungeon Master's perspective. But this can mean that what you are doing is always giving the players the exact answer they need to solve the riddle. And that's okay if you always want to try to progress the story, but this might mean that they cannot fail this adventure. Are you okay with that? With them not being able to fail this adventure? Because what you can also do is really ascribe certain pieces of knowledge to specific persons that might or might not be here in the inn, or were there earlier, or you might have to wait for the next morning to talk to someone because he's already gone to bed. You might get really into this. And I think this is pretty difficult for me, because I always feel that when I want to get the players from A to B and everything is allowed, that I'm kind of fooling myself about the importance of this adventure. Because of course I want them to get the knowledge, but I want them to work for it. How do you feel about this, chat? That's how I like to run my adventures, but it isn't necessary. And so there might always be a person in this inn right at this moment that will have the answer at the ready. The person who did this, I saw her escape from the window last night, because I was walking with my dog and I just saw it happen, and she went to that inn, and it was really suspicious because the bard told me earlier this evening that he was staying in exactly that room, but I didn't want to talk to the bard about it because it's not my problem, but now that you're asking me so directly, I'm giving you this answer, because there are all kinds of other complications, right? Why didn't he just say this to the bard? Anyway. If you want... Because what we are doing here is having a really small adventure that will be resolved in probably a couple of hours of play. If that's your goal and you want your players to feel victorious, just lead them to be in this manner, or through free hints that they can find at the inn that you don't have to have prepared before you even start this adventure, but you can just go. If they are talking to the barkeep, then the barkeep has a hint. If they're talking to the guy that looks at them shady, then that guy has a hint. If they walk outside and they see someone walking his rounds with his dogs, then that person might have a hint. And together, it can become quite obvious that that person is of smaller stature, or maybe not, and is staying at another inn. That will lead to the situation where they get to the other inn. So what does the inn know? Wait. Anything you want the players to know. Players to know, or not that much. Now they have to resolve the adventure. And so next step, go to the other inn. Now they get to the other inn. It's also still open. Is everything going okay? Yeah. It's also still open. They get inside and they've had this information about who to look for, and they see this person in the corner of the inn. They walk straight up to that person, and that person either flees or stays, and they can confront her. If she flees, there can be an escape scene where you can do some kind of skill check. For example, let them roll athletics checks versus the other parts, her acrobatics or athletics checks. She might know the way better, so she might have advantage on some checks if we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons. And when they catch up to her, they might just catch her and she will confess, or combat will ensue, or she might have helpers around the corner who help her deal with the party. Or if she does not flee, there might be a meaningful conversation within the inn, when suddenly a lot of people get up and draw their blades because she has bought their goodwill, and they don't really care about your life's choices. And the combat ensues in the inn, or they could simply talk her down and hand them the bottle because she regretted her actions, or even because the players gave her some gold as compensation and say to her, please don't do this again. It's just he didn't have anything to do with you not getting a job. That's your own fault, or he didn't do it intentionally. It just happened this way. No, you really have to think about what the end game will be here. Now, if you want to do an adventure where first session where you really want to have everything included that makes up a great D&D game. For example, there's a little mystery to solve, there's stuff to find, there's a great conversation, there's a chase, and there's a bit of combat. You can really script it that way. She will always run, she will always fight you. When you search the bard's room, you find something of her clothing hanging outside of the window on a nail that can be detected by quite an easy investigation check. The whole investigation in the inn itself is about having conversations with the people there, and you really have all the aspects of a great adventure in that game, and they're all in succession, leading up to resolving the quest by getting the bottle back from the bard and bringing it back to the other bard, and allowing him to unstop it, and his voice will return. And the nemesis. Sorry, now I'm starting to forget to write this down. Will talk, will flee, and let's see. Will fight, will show remorse, will get help. All these things can be part of her character, and this is what you, depending on what you. Okay, so this is the other thing. You might have thought about this beforehand and said, because this is session prep, so you decide this before you are going into the session. But then again, when you get the feeling that while this session is going on, that this is really a party that wants to resolve things by talking to people, then you might get a challenge. Then you might skip the whole fight scene and give them some kind of challenge to do during this conversation. And this challenge might be convincing them in the hard way by talking and making sense, or by succeeding diplomacy checks, or intimidation, or not diplomacy, deception, persuasion, or intimidation checks, whatever is appropriate, to get this result that you want them to have. But when you do that, then you are bending the story towards your players, which is okay, but it doesn't always have to be that way, because this story might not have a happy ending, because you will always fight to the death, and then your characters will have something to think about as well. They will realize that this world that you're building, other people have other ideas about what is good or wrong in this world than you might have. I have not included the collapsed building that's on this square, and Michel asked me to include that. So let's combine that with Dave's thing, right? Because, for example, or should I say pleasant news? No, I don't know, for all of the sudden. Anyway, say that they resolve this adventure. And they bring back the resolve the adventure. Bring back his voice. So you see, I'm not sending him on a wild goose chase into the into the forest right now. It's a really small adventure. I could next time we could reiterate some things and send them into the woods, into where a coven is gathering in a kind of Stonehenge setting, or these wolves that are really werewolves or anything. Have a thing where they take the voices of bards. It could also be a thing that will happen. But let's just say they resolve it by getting back that voice for the bard, and the bard is really thankful, and he says, "It's around on me," and he starts singing again because he's so happy. It's a wonderful evening. He pays the barkeep for their chambers, and they are so glad to be staying there, and it's really a sense of accomplishment. He couldn't pay them that much, but okay, who doesn't care? It's the first gold pieces you have earned, and the next day they can buy block and tackle, or a saddle for their horse, or a horse if it's a bit more gold that they can spend, and they will be very glad. And then stuff happens, of course. There's a flicker in the air. Darkness suddenly takes hold of the hearts of men and women on the square, because with the flicker in the air, their heart skips a beat. They look up and they see that instead of a moon just blocking the sun went black for just a second. No one knows what this means, but while it happens, this rickety house that's near the square suddenly starts shaking and collapses in on itself. The other buildings are shaking a bit as well, but this rickety house had it coming for years, and now it collapses. But instead of it just being a normal collapse, while it does this, they see some black energy, some ghostly manifestation shoot up to the sky and disappear. Their hearts have skipped a beat. The people on the square are silent. And that's the end of the session. So now you have a week to prepare for that. Yeah. So, that's probably how I would do it. Preparing a very small adventure. and being able to expand on it however I want it. So now we get into the thing. If you would be watching this video and you are a first-time dungeon master, and you get inspired by the story that I'm telling, then please consider every bit of what I just taught you as something that you can really take to heart. Because if you want to be really simple in your description and just tell your characters that this is an inn, it's like any other inn, and you get into it, it has tables and you sit down, then that's okay. And if you really want to expand on it because you are a great storyteller but you just have never been a dungeon master before, then you can get as creative as you want. The only thing I would suggest is that if you just want to do the Puckle the Bard story and have no intention to continue the story, keep it simple and just do prepare for that part of it. And if you want to set it into a bigger setting, just give some hints at certain points that there is a bigger world around this, or do the intro as I did the introduction. So I'm now getting quite familiar with the world of I have to take the other one, of Varden, which is a very cool world. I've drawn all the continents that are on this world. I have great knowledge about every nation on this world and what the complications are on a political level on each of these continents, and the kingdoms that are there, or the democracies. There are even some very technologically advanced countries that. But the world is so huge because it's revolving around this sun, and this sun, although not as big as our sun, is still quite big, and the world needs to be very big around this sun. So all kinds of ways of life have been invented, and there might even have been a kind of shuttle crash that happened because on the other side of the inner globe there is this civilization that is experimenting with traveling towards the sun, but realizing that the sun is really hot, they had to divert the path and crash with their spaceship into this medieval society that's over there. And we have not talked about species really right now. You can give an idea in this small adventure that you are preparing of greater things that are happening in the world, and if there is ever a history check about a sign that the bard is wearing on his chest that refers to a college of bards that's really active in this political climate where if you don't sing you die, for example, then you can add this knowledge on the spot, or you might have had it prepared before this session, and you might introduce this into your small adventure. But really, if you keep this very simple, if you keep the prep of this session very simple, then you have to know that there's a Pleasantville. You don't have to prep for it. Then you have to know there's an inn called... am I still on the right window? Yeah. That there's an inn called the Cow. And you don't need to prep for that. You can describe the cow without having to prep for it. You can describe the bard without having to prep for it. You have to know a bit of what the bards know, but you can get inspired on the spot and really take down only these 3 sentences and go with that. You can then resolve the conversation because the players say yes, which you cannot have prepared for because the players will always say things that you have not taken into account, but the outcome will be a yes. And this might be so from, it might be that the players say, should we do this? Yes, and then the conversation is over and they will go on this quest. What does the inn know? Exactly what the players want to know. They go to the other inn they talk to the person and they kill him and they get the bottle back to the other guy. And then there's just a little bit of preparation for that fight. Yeah, that's the thing I did not include yet in this show. The fighting part. Let's say it's Dungeons and Dragons, because I will most of the time will just be talking about Dungeons and Dragons, although you can do this in any setting, of course. How strong is this bard? If she is as strong as the whole party, it will not be a simple one-level bard. If she has a lot of allies, you can really go with that. And you can just look up, for example, a bandit in the monster manual and say there are 3 of these kinds of creatures here that and each have their specific. The one has a beard, the other one doesn't, for example. But they might be really generic in a way. But she might call them Phil, Bob, and a Potato Head, and they suddenly are these characters anyway. And then she, who we have not even named, but her name is Flower. Go to the other end. Go to the other end and to the nemesis, who is named Flower, because Flower is a nice name, right? And Flower, well, she might have ambitions of her own, so she might talk about that. But anyway, she's a first, second, third level bard. Who cares? Well, you do. So she can inspire someone, and she can cast a spell that helps her in combat. I would suggest at least giving her one spell that is usable in combat. It might even be strange to the player characters. For example, you might have her being able to cast Tasha's Hideous Laughter, because it's not really something that new players think of when they play these kinds of games, but they will be rolling on the floor laughing and not being able to do some stuff. Well, you can. There are creative spells that you can use, and she might just be really good with a short sword and deal her damage that way while casting Hideous Laughter. Don't make. This is what our Dungeon Master in the Precipice of Dreams does really well. If you have noticed, he prefers a lot of enemies, but individually they aren't that strong. You don't have to make them all very strong. You don't have to give them all the abilities that a normal player character would have. But what he does do is give them, from my perspective, quite a lot of hit points on average. And this is... so their hits are small on the player characters, but the combat is extended because of the pool of hit points that these enemies have. And this gives it a sense of danger, because when you have 8 hit points at level 1 and you get hit twice and you get 3 and 3 damage, then you really get the feeling that you're in a fight for your life. When you get one shot by a hit that deals 10 damage, then you might feel a bit overwhelmed by the combat. But I will get into combat and preparing for a battle, of course, in later episodes to a bigger extent. But this is the way how you can resolve that kind of combat. Just look up, well, use the player handbook, for example, to make a simple bard. Don't flesh out every aspect of the bard. Charisma is important, dexterity might be important, hit points might be important, the armor class might be important, but then leave most of the spells out and just pick what she will be using for combat. If she survives and she becomes an important character, you can always add to this character. And for the bandits, just take a simple bandit, nothing more. And because I know that some of you may ask, but is this an interesting kind of combat? Well, I think it will always be an interesting kind of combat to first level players, but description might make a big difference as well. If you are saying that this bandit, who is called Bob, is getting up on the table while the other is sneaking around him, and the person they try to flank this player character, even though you might not include the flanking rules in your campaign, then the sense of danger is real. If Flower drops some chairs in front of her, and you can't get to her, or it becomes difficult terrain, or whatever, then this adds to the feeling of the combat as well. If she walks up the stairs and shoots from there, then you suddenly have different levels in your combat, and it can be done because it's an inn. Now, what will your players be expecting from this combat? Will they be expecting to work on a grid? Do you have a fancy Roll20 map prepared that you got from the internet? Or are you doing theater of mind? Or do you have the Dwarven Forge materials at your disposal? Or did you make a whole dungeon out of, or a whole inn out of foam board? To me, it doesn't really matter. I would suggest just take a piece of paper, make a grid out of it if you want to fight on a grid, but use theater of mind as not only the cheapest solution, but also a solution that really grabs your imagination while you're doing combat. We had in the Precipice of Dreams, we had the combat encounter where we started with theater of mind and ended on a grid. But I really love the theater of mind stuff, because you can imagine, oh, I want to jump to such a place with my teleportability within reach. Is there such a place, dear Dungeon Master? And the Dungeon Master can think, yeah, there might be, because there's this route system and everything. So yeah, you can teleport there. And you might not have seen this route system on the D20 grid. So your imagination really takes time. But you have to, as a Dungeon Master, you really have to be able to resolve these kind of things in your head when you're doing theater of mind. So you have to keep track of where everybody is. You can also use paper, of course, to track this. And this can be really easy. Player M is here, and now you moved 60 feet in front of the others. So you scratch away player M and put it, just for your own reference, you don't have to show this to your players. Put him in front of it and say 60 feet marker, put a 60 feet marker above it, and then he's 60 feet in front of the party. But you can do it all out of your, by just remembering. You can do it by just remembering where everybody is if you get trained in this way of doing combat. Michel says, warlock tiles and paper with a quick cave drawn on there. Yeah, so that's an in-between solution. So you have this, you have all these modules that you can buy that interconnect, but you can also use them with, well, let me give an example. I have to get back to this one, then I have to put this. So these are some of the things I really like. Let's put this one here. So this is a waiting room in a hospital that I used in a one shot for my adventure, and it's really clear. You know, it's paper. There's a grid on there. Don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can. Inch paper, and I just drew this on with my hand as a simple way to visualize this room. There's a desk here, there's a little table here and a little table there, a couple of chairs. There are these doors that are transparent, but you just can't see really through them because the glass is all misty and everything. And then this is your battleground. I've put this on carton. Am I saying it right? So you don't know if the word is right. Anyway, because I want to be able to flip it, because they were in a nightmare, and on the other side is the fleshy interior that represents the other interior. So this is a nice trick to mess with your players, but you really only have to have these kinds of maps if you want to keep it really simple. Pleasant Muse says, if I'm using theater of mind, I always keep a piece of paper behind my screen for reference. Much easier to do that instead of trying to remember where everyone is. Yeah. Although when I was younger, like a teenager, I could remember the position of all my 6 players and about 40 enemies in my head and really understand where they were. I can't do that anymore, so I have to keep track as well. And this is another room, and the reverse of this room is that. And this is so cheap, it's just pen and paper really, and a grid. So there are very many ways in which you can do combat, and none of them is wrong. But I would suggest trying Theater of Mind, because I think imagination is pretty important in these kinds of games. Although there are players who... Oh, it's inch grid paper. It's from these flip over papers that you can buy for businesses to ride on. Man. And I just got some of it lying here somewhere, and like a Stedler pigment liner. That's all you need, really. Yeah. Then I have these Pathfinder miniatures, which are really great. But you don't have to have Pathfinder miniatures. Here, now we're getting into stuff anyway, which is cool, because Roger made these for me. These are just tokens with a number on them. You might recognize them a bit from Precipice of Dreams, but through their markings on the side. But these are just with numbers. And in Precipice of Dreams, because it's digital, of course, we have all these images printed on them. But you can move these around, and Roger put foam under it and put plastic on top of it. It's really elaborate, but I love them. They're really simple. And he had some kind of candy tube where they could be put into. Off to bed. Good luck with the show, Jasper, and everyone else. Have fun. Thank you, Erik. So these are some ways in which you can do combat, but I would suggest Theater of Mind, because it's really cool. But there will be those players who have no imagination. There are players who have no imagination and still enjoy playing these kinds of games. So keep track of that. Because you don't want to let anybody feel left out because you're doing it in a way that every time you go into combat, that person can't relate to what you're doing. So if a grid and miniatures are necessary, I would suggest you find a way to do it. But with markers and such a simple thing as this, you can do that. This is a roper, for example, from the Pathfinder setting. Really great. Good night, Herr Stevens, says Ashley, and as Michel does as well. So what have we learned? That you can talk nearly 2 hours about an adventure that would probably take anywhere from 1 minute to 1 hour to prep, for example. Lots and lots, says Ashley. Well, thank you, Ashley. And I don't want to... when I say that it can be... Yes, cat. Oh, man. Anywhere between 2 minutes and 1 hour, or it might be 4 hours. It doesn't matter, really. It's if you want to put the time in, or you need to put the time in, that's just what you do. The only thing I wanted to show in this first episode is that you can break it up into small pieces if you think about your adventure as a linear progression, and if you keep to these steps where you don't overdevelop your adventure but keep to the basics, you can keep it pretty simple and have a great evening of play. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say for this episode. So, I already got some compliments in chat, but I hope you really enjoyed this. I hope I made a good start with this information. I'm less nervous myself, so probably the next show will be even more clear for you. Love the new show. Can't wait to see more. Thank you, Pleasant News. And what I was wondering, does this feel like session prep to you? Or does this feel like something else? I don't know. What do you expect from session prep? Thanks, Ashley. Good job, man. No need to be nervous. Killed it. Thank you. Because I really try to not involve the whole universe in this first session, but you obviously will get the feeling that there's more information needed to continue this short story. Right? Thanks, Michel. Definitely some amazing insight on how to prep. Everyone has their own way, but this gave a lot of structure to what is otherwise chaos. Yeah, well, the funny thing is, Dave, I don't do it this way. And that's not entirely true, because I think I have really been, the last couple of weeks, I've really been thinking about how do I even approach these subjects. I was so busy in the last few weeks that I did my own campaign, that I at one point was making a legendary creature as they were fighting it, and it was an epic combat, and that's because I've got years of experience that I can do that. But I hadn't even thought at the start of the session what the session would be about, because sometimes you're so overwhelmed with the rest of your life that you simply don't have the time, and that's how weird it can get in Dungeons and Dragons, and that's why session preparation can be such a different thing for everybody. Does Ashley Gibson do maps? If you're doing mapping, let me know. It's only one of my specialties, being trained in it for real. Oh, cool. Yeah. I do them for free, all for fun, being a navigator. That's cool. Yeah, I do all my maps as well, of course. You see them below my thing. I love drawing maps. So session prep is really strange for me as well, and I try to make order out of chaos, really. Yeah. I love Jasper John's map style, by the way. Thank you, Michel. Yeah, I've got quite a clear line style. Don't know if I can at least show you some of my... you've seen them there, I'm guessing. But so this is, for example, this is a city map I've done. The ring light is reflecting on the... So that's the... if I take my time, it becomes these kinds of maps. But it really takes a long time to finish such a map. So, no. We'll go into maps another time. Because I must say, I really like this map as well. Because it's simple and it does the same job as that map did. I literally showed it once to my players, and then they left the city. And even though it's one of the more important maps in my campaign, they were inside the palace for 7 to 8 episodes because all kinds of stuff happened in there, but it never went into the city proper. and that's why these kinds of quick maps, I really like these kinds of quick maps because they do the same job. Incredible. I wish I had the kind of talent. I just know how to do stupid voices. Well, stupid voices are fun to Pleasant Muse. Ashley says, are you on the Void Discord, Pleasant Muse? I can show you some of the ones for my job. Well, that's a clear invitation to our Discord. But Pleasant Muse is already on there, though. But for everybody else who's watching, please join us on our Discord. I am at one point going to draw the maps by hand that we are using in the Precipice of Dreams. But time, right? I loved your line work and flair and geometric shapes and stuff. Yeah, well, yeah, I love that as well. Oh man. Okay, so I think this will be the end of the episode. I will be announcing the topic of the next one next time, but I think I will be going off this start of an adventure and doing the foreshadowing bit and taking that into consideration. What can you do after session 1 will probably be the topic. Thank you for joining me. Be sure to watch us on Monday with Parallel Projections, next Monday at 8:30, I think. And then the Tuesday after, it's Talking Void with me, Michel, and our guest Allard from Dutch 20. And we'll be discussing everything about communities, and we'll always be also be doing our main question, which is about what's the best start of an adventure you've ever had, which is funny because, of course, now everyone's best start of an adventure is the one we did today. Again, amazing job. Well, cannot wait to see where the series goes. Yeah, I cannot wait to see where the series goes as well. As always, I thought I had prepared too little, but I really took off the first marker on the list where I had like 20. So, much more in store. And then the Monday after that, it's Precipice of Dreams again. Follow us on our socials. Leave a like on YouTube. Follow us on Twitch. And if you have that Prime subscription and you liked the show or any of our other shows, please do it our way. And see you soonish. With that, we're going into the... into the outro for Talking Void, because I don't have a Jasper's Laboratory outro yet. See you in 2 weeks with this show. Goodbye.